north, stings the corner. You know it's coming. You still can't stop it.
Welcome back, everyone. Tuesday night, 8 p.m. You know that Jay and I are here and ready to break down the NCAA tournament. It's the Lacrosse Rundown. I'm Charlotte North. This is ESPN's Jay Alter. And I don't know if we've ever had a better opening weekend to the NCAA Lacrosse tournament, both men's and women's, than we had this past weekend, Jay.
Charlotte, it was a wild weekend. If you were lacrosse fans like us, there was nothing better than the drama on Sunday in particular, because you had the women's second round and you had the men's first round wrapping up. It felt like overtime everywhere, all these close games. It really lived up to the hype. We felt like this was a year that the chalk wasn't necessarily going to play out like we've seen in years past in these early rounds on both the men's and the women's side, and we were exactly right. There's so much to get to. We're going to get to all of it, and we want to hear what you have to say too. So what was your most impressive performance, whether it was an individual player or a team? What were your thoughts on the first weekend of the NCAA tournament on both the men's and the women's side? I promise we're going to get to all of it. There's a lot to unpack, so bear with us. I don't even know where to start, Charlotte.
Well, we said on the selection show, for all of you guys here tonight with us that were watching the selection show, we said that the second round matchups were going to be the craziest, potentially closer than the quarterfinal matchups. Now, we've got a big slate ahead this Thursday for the quarterfinal round, but the second round had so many storylines. For me, the one that I had my eyes on all the way from Selection Sunday to now was Princeton versus Johns Hopkins. I thought Princeton was going to come in with so much firepower. They had just lost the Ivy League championship. They had just received an unseeded position in the tournament. They didn't get a home game, and Hopkins got the 8 seed. I thought that may have gone the other way. So then what does Princeton do? They show up and they absolutely steamroll the Johns Hopkins Blue Jays. Now, the Hopkins team had a phenomenal year in the Big Ten. And credit to that squad for what they did this year, really elevating the program. But the Princeton Tigers, they are no joke, and they reminded everybody in the nation who they are.
Well, if you've been following the Lacrosse Rundown since we started a few months ago, you know we have been high on the Ivy League. And we were proven right in that second round, Charlotte, with three Ivy League teams advancing to the quarterfinals. You mentioned Princeton with an epic takedown of Hopkins, leaving no doubt that they should have been that 8 seed and had that game at home. They went on the road to Homewood Field, historic Homewood Field, and still got it done. Then you had Penn beating Maryland in a crazy overtime game. That overtime was nuts, back and forth, so much drama, and Penn gets the golden goal to send the Quakers to the quarterfinals. And then Yale, a 1-goal victory in New Haven against Syracuse. So 3 Ivy League teams in the quarterfinal. And I feel a little validated, Charlotte, because a lot of people stick with, okay, the ACC and the Big Ten are a cut above everybody else. But you and I, the eye test was telling us that the Ivy League was very legitimate this season, and we were proven correct.
And a lot of records were broken by Ivy League players. You had Mackenzie Blake. We've known her as the lefty goal scorer. She is an off-ball threat. She is automatic from the inside, and she broke the Ivy League single-season goals record this past weekend when they were on their way to victory. Then we had, for Yale, Jenna Kalignan set a program record for the Yale Bulldogs in single-season goals and career goals. So, I mean, it feels like there's so much offensive firepower in the Ivy League now. They're going to have a very, very hard test come quarterfinal Thursday, and we're going to get to that. But for Penn, my eyes go to this series rivalry, this series history between the Terps and the Quakers. Penn has now won the last 3 meetings between these two. And a lot of people forget that. A season ago, Penn won in the regular season. This current season, Penn won in a last-second goal by Keely Block at Penn against Maryland. And then they did it again on Maryland's home turf. And it was a crazy series of events that ended that game. In regulation, Gracie Smith came up with a cause turnover in the midfield, threw it to Erica Chung, who was right on the doorstep. And with just seconds left on the clock, they send the game into overtime. They tie it up. And then you had Catherine Berkery from almost no angle behind the cage, sending it far pipe and scoring the game-winning goal. So it was quite the day for the Ivy League.
So awesome, and kind of full circle, to be honest with you, for Charlotte and I, who have been hyping up the Ivy League to get 3 teams to the quarterfinal. Truly remarkable, and they're not done yet. All 3 teams will be underdogs. We'll get to the quarterfinal coming up later in the show, but it's not impossible that they get a team to the Final Four championship weekend for the first time since Princeton in 2004. It's been too long.
That's insane. Think about that. 2004, and they have 3 teams who are now in the quarterfinals on Thursday.
Okay, so you mentioned a couple of record-breaking performances. We're 5 minutes into the show, and we haven't said the name. Madison Taylor.
Yes.
Drop the mic. That was unreal. An NCAA tournament record, Charlotte. 10 goals for this Northwestern program as they take down their Big Ten rivals, Michigan. Look, I always say, on the biggest stages, you need your best players to step up, and Madison Taylor delivered again. Northwestern clicking, firing on all cylinders, and Taylor leading the way with that special 10-goal performance.
How about us on Selection Sunday saying Northwestern has the hardest path? Enter Madison Taylor. I mean, they're going to have a hard quarterfinal game against Penn, but they absolutely dominated for the second time this season against Michigan. Now, Michigan plays a man-to-man defense. Madison Taylor absolutely dominated her matchup. Completely dominated. She was winning her 1v1 matchup. She was going over the top, underneath. She was highly efficient scoring, setting a single game tournament record 10 goals on the day. Unbelievable.
Truly a special performance from a special player. We're going to get to the Tewaaraton finalists, which was announced since our last episode later on the show. Taylor obviously is one of them. And I just think it's really cool. Going to the men's side for a brief second, we're going to do a deep dive later. You know, CJ Kirst has all the attention, similar to Madison Taylor on the women's side, and to still deliver a 6-goal performance for Kirst, a 10-goal performance for Taylor. I think it's hard. And Charlotte, you can speak to this. Like, you've been in that spot where you know you are highlighted, bolded, underlined on the scouting report. Everybody eyes on you. You're a marked man, and yet you still deliver. You still produce. It's so impressive to me.
It's what makes these players so great. You mentioned Madison Taylor and CJ Kirst. You know, they have the top matchups on every opposing defense, yet they want the ball in those moments. They want to create offense. They want to do their job, just like everybody else on the team does. They want to do their job. And for those 2 players, their job is to own their matchup and to create offense, whether that's drawing a slide and moving the ball to the backside, or that's owning their matchup and getting to the goal and burying their shot with an extra layer of focus, precision, and dominance. And in the biggest moments when the nerves are higher than ever, you know, it's win or go home for these teams. You look to players like that, and credit to them. What 2 unbelievable opening round performances. I can't wait to see what they do the rest of the tournament. But to wrap up the crazy first and second round on the women's side, how about Florida? Stanford goes on and avenges their loss against Denver. They beat Denver in the first round. That game was a whirlwind. Then they turn around and they play Florida, the 4th-seeded Gators, on their home turf, and they take it to double overtime. And Jay, the game winner, what did you think about it?
There's some controversy here. And as a broadcaster, what I really felt like needed to be said was the call on the field was going to stand either way. So if they call no goal on the field, it would have been no goal. But it was very critical that the officials doing that game called it a goal. So with limited angles, with video review, there was not indisputable evidence. I heard a lot of, well, I think it didn't cross. I think doesn't matter what you think. You need 100% indisputable video evidence that that ball did not cross the line. You don't need 100% evidence that it did, because it was called a goal on the field. And look, this is a classic tournament game where you're watching this overtime play out, and you start feeling sick that one of these teams is going to lose.
I know.
They both deserve to keep their season alive. Stanford has had a remarkable season, getting to the ACC semifinals, going on the road. I thought the toughest draw in the field.
All the way to Gainesville.
You got to go across the country to Gainesville. You got to play a team in the first round that you lost to in the regular season turn around a day later and play a really good Florida team on the road. And I'll say this. I think there's something to be said for programs that have got it done recently. It's just embedded in your program. We find ways to win in these spots, and Florida has continued to find ways to win. They made it to the Final Four a year ago. Even though they lost a lot of players from that team, the program expects to win those games, and they found a way in overtime, truly by an inch. It's a game of inches. That's a cliche.
A literal inch.
Truly, it played out that way.
I think that's a great point. I think, it was hard to tell from the angles. Now, it's similar for all of you out there who are watching tonight. If you watch football, you have to have clear evidence to overturn the call. And that's what I think was a little bit hard to tell from the replay angles. Now, it's an incredible thing that we have video review for moments like this. And it was the specific angle that it was very hard to tell from, but they had video evidence on hand. It was just the details that were hard to really decipher if the ball completely crossed the goal line. But it was Caitlin Davies who had the game winner. She had 5 goals on the day. Now, this is a Florida team that, Jay, you mentioned, they look very different from last year, but it's their will to win. It's the way in which they're winning as a team and their relentless approach all over the field. It feels like they're willing to do anything to get a win, no matter what it looks like. It doesn't have to be pretty. They are willing to do whatever it takes to win.
So I thought, as we wrap up the first and second round on the women's side before we look at the men's weekend, and it was truly a wild weekend on both sides, the most impressive team performance over the course of the weekend, I thought, belonged to Duke.
Yes.
A Blue Devils team that was on the bubble coming into the NCAA tournament. Difficult draw. James Madison in the first round, they win 17-10. Then you turn around and play a Virginia team that they lost to in the regular season. You leave no doubt. You beat them 17-9 on their own field. Callie Hem, 15 goals in those 2 games. Where did this performance come from? A team that I thought ended the season on a sour note, getting dominated by North Carolina and then losing in that first round game to Clemson in the ACC tournament. You didn't know what Duke team was going to show up, and they blew the doors off a really good James Madison team and a really good Virginia team. So credit to Duke. Yep. They are 1 win away from their first Final Four in 10 seasons.
Unbelievable. 17 goals in back-to-back tournament games is nearly impossible to do, especially against the number 5 seeded Virginia Cavaliers. Callie Hem has been a player that I've loved watching all year. I loved watching her at Harvard. She comes in as a grad transfer. She's a tall presence inside, and she's an elite finisher. She has such elite stick work and range as a shooter. She is an opposing zone defense's nightmare because of the way that she operates on the inside. We saw it at the ACC tournament. We saw it all season long, and we saw it in the first and second round of this tournament. The way that she dissects the inside of a defense, she pays such close attention to the way a defense is choosing to move and slide and the way that they turn their heads. If you like off-ball awareness, IQ, and cutting, watch Callie Hem.
Yeah, that was a special performance. Just had to get that in there. We didn't know where to start. We feel like we did a decent job covering the first and second round on the women's side. But if you have a performance or a team that you want to shout out, do it in the chat. We want to hear what you have to think. And we'll talk about the quarterfinal matchups, which are 2 days away. They're going to be here on Thursday. Can't believe it. Want to get to your thoughts on the men's tournament, Charlotte. Really interesting because I think we saw a narrative shift between Saturday and Sunday. On Saturday, talking to people in the lacrosse world, everyone's like, man, the ACC is terrible. UNC loses to Richmond. Duke goes down to Georgetown.
I know.
And then how quickly things can change because Notre Dame goes on the road, knocks out the Big Ten champs, Ohio State, and then Syracuse surges back in the fourth quarter. The Orange score 7 fourth-quarter goals, force overtime, win it in overtime on an insane goal by Owen Hiltz. So the ACC maybe not as dead as we thought on Saturday, and that's what this tournament can do. Game to game, day to day, it changes.
I almost, I was filling out my bracket on the men's side, and I actually picked Richmond to win because I think that they're not given enough credit for how talented that they are. But to go into a place like Chapel Hill and to get that win in the first round, unbelievable. Georgetown right down the road in Durham goes into Durham, and they win, being the unseeded team. Aiden Carroll in the Big East Championship for Georgetown has 10 points on the day, 8 goals, 2 assists. What does he do? He goes into the first round of the NCAA tournament, follows it up with 8 points, 6 goals, 2 assists. And he literally put the team on his back, and he was everywhere on that offense. He had the best matchup on Duke's defense, and he still delivered. It was an unbelievable opening day. But then, I think the second day was even better because for the reasons you mentioned, Jay, but I think Notre Dame reminded everybody why they're the 2-time defending champs. You just can never count them out. And not only did they go in to Columbus, Ohio, and beat the Big Ten champs, they absolutely destroyed them. And it wasn't just the X's and O's. It was the way in which Notre Dame wins at this time of the year. It was capitalizing on errors, forcing errant passes. It was winning end line runouts. It was the extra possessions. It was unbelievable to watch. I personally love watching their team because of the way that they play together, the fight that they play with. Of course, you have Chris Kavanaugh, but you have so much more than that from top to bottom on that team. And it was a true awakening for the Irish after they had an unexpected exit in that semifinal round of the ACC tournament.
Well, what do we always talk about, Charlotte? Who's going to get their team to play their best lacrosse when it matters most in May? And Notre Dame has proven that they can do that. That was the Notre Dame team that we expected to see early in the season. It took them until now.
Yes.
But do you want to play them? I mean, they look like the most dangerous team in the entire country.
They did.
And now, it's funny. Last week I was saying I really think it's going to be Cornell against the winner of Princeton and Syracuse. Well, I think you got to put Notre Dame right in the mix. I think it's going to be one of those 4. Notre Dame, Cornell, Princeton, or Syracuse. I think one of those 4 will be your national champion. Now, you can say, Jay, you're picking 4 of 8. That's not really going out on a limb, but you could make a case for all 8 teams. I do feel like that Princeton-Syracuse game, though, Charlotte.
I know.
The history of those programs, they've played for national championships. It just feels like the sport at the best level. You got Gary Gate on the sidelines for the Orange, bringing them back to this stage. Princeton, I think, is one of the best offenses in the country, headlined by Coulter Mackesy. I am really excited for the Orange and the Tigers to go to battle.
So I think for me, that's the matchup I have my eyes on. The Syracuse team that played on Sunday and beat Harvard. They avenged their regular season loss to Harvard. For a second there, it looked like it was repeat, and they couldn't keep up with the Crimson. And it was a phenomenal game for those of you who watch. If you did not see that game, you got to go back and watch Syracuse come back, because the energy in the Dome, you could feel how much it meant to have that game being played at the Dome for the Syracuse team, who refused to go away, and they gave their fans an absolute show. I think the way in which they win faceoffs, the way that they move the ball, the way that they have a balanced offense with their righties and lefties. Of course, you mentioned Owen Hiltz, who had the game winner. They're just so connected, and we saw it in their ACC title run a couple of weeks ago, but they're so connected that it's going to be who can limit the opposing offense between Syracuse and Princeton, because I think Princeton has the second best offense in the nation behind Cornell. And you saw that in their dominant win over Towson. But you saw a Syracuse offense that plays much, much different, much more together, I would say, much more chemistry. But you got a Princeton offense that has Nate Kabiri and Coulter Mackesy, who are scary to go against. So, I mean, I don't know who's going to win that game, but something to note that's different for the men's quarterfinals and the women's is they're played at a neutral site.
Right.
And for the women's side, the 4 quarterfinals are played at the highest seed. The highest seed gets to host. So a neutral site for these 4 men's quarterfinals, and I expect the stands to be packed.
When I look at those quarterfinal matchups, Cornell Richmond really intrigues me because they actually played on March 2nd. So a while ago, but again, this season, Richmond led and dominated that game. Cornell stormed back in the 4th quarter to win 12-11, but Richmond for 3 quarters plus of that game was in the driver's seat, and they'll go in with tons of confidence that, hey, we went toe to toe with this team. They will be unafraid of that offense. And I think Albany exposed in that first half too. Here's the thing. A lot of people focus on CJ Curson for good reason, but he's going to get his goals, right? Like he's going to put up his 5-6 goals. Can you stop everybody else? And for long stretches in that game, they did shut down their midfield. They did shut down Ryan Goldstein. And so is there a recipe to pull the upset for Richmond? This is a Spiders team that really comes in believing. It's the two longest active winning streaks in the country, Richmond and Cornell. And they have to meet in the quarterfinals. So there's no easy game when you get to this point in the season on the men's or the women's side. You're going to have to beat a really quality opponent. But I think it's wide open. I really do. I would still put my money on Cornell because I think they've shown that they don't have to be at their best to win. They can still play complementary lacrosse, as their head coach Connor Busick says. Like, it doesn't always need to be the offense is on. When the offense is off, the defense steps up. That's what good teams do. It'll just be really interesting to see how it plays out. And I love that a week from today, we're going to have our Final Four set and that both the men and the women will crown a champion together at Gillette Stadium. I am so excited for that.
This time next week, we will know who's headed to Foxborough. This is what teams live for. This is what they dream of. This is what they start talking about when they show up in August, ready to hit the weight room, go to the early morning workouts, get extra reps after practice. It literally is what everybody works towards. But a team we didn't mention, Jay, is Penn State. And Penn State, they beat Colgate by 2 in their opening round. Now they have to face the Irish. I want to know your thoughts. Who, if you had to pick, who do you have winning this game?
Yeah, I've got Notre Dame. I just don't think you want to see the Irish right now, the way they played Ohio State. I thought Penn State did well to survive and advance against the Patriot League champs Colgate, but there was nothing in that game that blew me away like I was blown away when I was watching Notre Dame. When I was watching Notre Dame, particularly defensively, like this is an Irish team that just dialed in, made life very difficult for Ohio State. Self-inflicted wounds that we haven't seen the Buckeyes make all season showed up in that game, and it was the way Notre Dame attacked them on the defensive end. I just think Notre Dame wins that game. And who knows? I mean, there's narratives. We were talking about it on the women's side. Like, we always thought the Ivy League was maybe a little better than they were being ranked. I kind of thought all season on the men's side, the Big Ten was a little inflated. I kind of thought that the Ivy League and the ACC were better than the Big Ten men. And it doesn't surprise me that Ohio State was knocked out. I thought that game was 50-50 going into the weekend. I just think Ohio State, to me, is better than Penn State, and Notre Dame beat them, so why wouldn't they beat the Buckeyes? But every game, as we said, it's day-to-day, it's week-to-week. Every matchup's different. Who knows what's going to happen, but I would go Cornell, Notre Dame. What's excuses? I mean, it's
you're
so
you're
tough.
an alum. You're an alum.
I know,
you're
but I think I would go Princeton, though. I think I would go Princeton, and then I would go Maryland.
Okay, so you think we get one Big Ten team in the Final Four. You think Maryland beats Georgetown?
I do, but you're right. Aiden Carroll and the Hoyas, don't count them out.
Yes. I mean, again, we said it on the show last week. These quarterfinal matchups on the men's side could quite literally be national championship or Final Four matchups that we are used to seeing. So it's been the story on the men's side this whole season. The top, past Cornell, the top 2 through 8 or 9 have showed a legitimate chance to win the title.
But even Richmond could beat Cornell, and I wouldn't sit here shocked. Like, I think that would shock people.
I would be shocked.
They played them a 1-goal game in March. I mean, there's nothing.
But Cornell
shocking,
looks even better to me than they did in March.
No doubt. Still the favorites for sure.
All right. Now, enough about the first and second rounds. They were incredibly exciting. We cannot wait to hear your guys' thoughts. So let us know in the live chat right now what you guys loved to watch this past weekend, or if it was a player that stood out to you that maybe you had never seen before, or a player you've loved watching all season long. Let us know. But now time for our favorite segment of the show, which is questions from you guys from last week's episode. Now, we had a special episode last week where we introduced our May Madness bracket competition, if you will, and a giveaway prize for that competition. So we had you guys enter in the comment section of last week's video. We had you enter your Final Four prediction and your national champion prediction on the women's side. The winner, whoever gets it right, wins a brand new Gate Whip 2 head signed by myself that will be sent to you. So thank you all for entering into that competition. We got some awesome answers. We love hearing from you guys. We love hearing what you guys think because you guys are watching the same amount of lacrosse as we are. You're watching the same game. So we love connecting with you guys on it. You're the best part of this show. But we can't wait to follow the rest of the tournament and see which one of you guys wins the ultimate giveaway prize. But there were some questions as well because that's what we love to do. When this live show ends tonight, make sure you go to the live tab of my YouTube channel, click on the video, add a question in the comment section, and it will be featured on next week's show, which will be the ultimate show previewing our Final Four on the men and the women's side. So, Jay, we got a couple questions, not as many because of the giveaway, but we had a couple really good ones from Ava Lee. So Ava Lee's the star of the question segment today. All right, first one, Jay. Biggest shock of the tournament so far?
Ooh, great question, Ava Lee. I would say the three. I don't know. I was going to say the three Ivies, but it's a shock to everybody else, but not us. I would say Duke. If truly biggest shock, I think Duke beating James Madison and then throttling Virginia 17-9. That to me, the Blue Devils really delivered and one game away from their first Final Four in 10 years. And they get, I would say, the most favorable quarterfinal matchup because we were always saying you want to try and avoid North Carolina, Boston College, or Northwestern. So no disrespect to Florida, but I think they're the most vulnerable host of those four teams, and Duke gets that draw.
Yep, I love that pick. I'm going to go with Yale only because I had Syracuse avenging their regular season loss to the Bulldogs. They went into New Haven earlier this season, and for a long time in that game, it looked like Syracuse was going to win, but enter Jenna Kalignan. She had the game tire and the game winner, and she put the team on her back in those big time moments. And we've talked about this senior class for Yale for so long. This is a senior class that took a year off during the COVID pandemic so that they were able to come back to Yale and finish out their 4-year career because you cannot take a 5th year at an Ivy League school. They had to take a semester off of school and they stayed together and they were driven to get back to this moment. Now, this was a 1-goal game. And it shocked me. I would say the Penn 1-goal game also shocked me just because of that Penn won that regular season matchup. So these are two Ivy League teams that won these matchups in the regular season. They had the cards stacked against them, and they did it again. So those are the biggest shocks for me.
Yeah, I think the Ivy League getting all those results to break their way, getting 3 to the quarterfinals. Again, I don't want to use the word shock, but super impressive, and I think took a lot of people by surprise.
Absolutely. All right. Ava Lee has the second question that we're going to feature today, and that is, if Ashley Mackin never gets injured, is she a Tewaaraton finalist? Great question, because we are going to now touch on the finalists, the 5 finalists that were announced this past week on the women's side. You've got Rachel Clark and Shea Dolce, the goalkeeper, the Boston College Eagles representing, and then you have Ashley Humphrey, Chloe Humphrey, the sisters of the North Carolina Tar Heels on attack. And then you have Madison Taylor, who we just talked about, but the left-handed goal scorer for Northwestern as the 5 finalists. Jay, what are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, Charlotte, is there anything you'd like to say to me? Because you've been saying for weeks that there was only going to be one Humphrey, and I count 2.
I did. Credit to you and the great Hall of Famer, Sheehan Staywick Birch. You guys, you predicted.
And here's why. They are the number 1 team in the country. They're the only undefeated team in the country. They should get 2 players in the top 5. I think the committee really rewarded team performance. That's why and individual performance. It's a combination, as it always is. But Madison Taylor, she was a lock. Rachel Clark, she was a lock. And then one Humphrey was a lock. Yes. So 2 spots remain. Going back to the question, would Mackin have outpaced UNC and BC from getting a second player in? They would have had to win the Big Ten or at least get to the final. Yeah. Now, if Mackin is healthy, do they? Maybe. We don't know.
Right.
So if she's healthy and she puts up big numbers and they make it to the Big Ten championship game, maybe she does squeeze out a second Humphrey sister or Shea Dolce. In my opinion, I don't think so. I think these were the right five, the five of destiny, if you will. And I actually think, unlike the men's side, which you can ship the trophy to Ithaca for CJ Kurz.
We've been saying this, yes.
Yeah, I said it on the air Sunday night 12 times. I hope everyone's not offended. But you can truly ship it. Here's the deal. All five on the women's side have a chance. It will determine how it's played out. So if Northwestern wins it all and Madison Taylor is a big reason why, Tewaaraton. If BC wins it all and Dolce makes 15 saves to win them a game, Dolce.
Did she become the second goalie ever to win the Tewaaraton?
Yeah, and if Chloe or Ashley Humphrey dominate for UNC and they win the national championship, it'll be one of them. So I really do think it's a really unique year because there's not a runaway. People will say, Jay, you're a clown. It's going to be Rachel Clark or Madison Taylor. I'm hearing a lot of that right now.
Let us know in the chat what you guys think of Jay's takes.
I don't know. I just feel like the committee's telling you what they're valuing, and they're valuing team performance. So I do feel like whoever wins the national championship, that is going to be a significant criteria.
I agree. I think this year more than ever, it's certainly going to play a factor. Let us know what you guys think, though, in the chat. Who of these five do you enjoy watching? What do you like about their game? And maybe a little prediction of what you think is going to happen. I think all five of these players, to your point, Jay, how it plays out will impact this race. But I think all five of these players impact the winning or the losing of these teams dramatically. And that it sounds obvious, but that's why they're these five finalists, is they impact these teams in such dramatic ways.
I mean, if Madison Taylor's going to score 10 goals a game, then you can ship the trophy to Evanston. But who knows? It's all to play for, and that's what makes it so dramatic and so fun for us.
I know. And we talk about, when we talk about Boston College and North Carolina meeting up, we talk about, is it going to be a high-scoring or a low-scoring affair? They're two of the best offenses, two of the best defenses, two of the best goalkeepers. Enter Northwestern, same thing. High-flying offense, a very physical and hard-to-beat defense, and you got Delaney Schweitzer in cage. So it's layers to all of these matchups. And we talked about North Carolina, Boston College, and Northwestern being the top three teams all year, and it feels like their dominance has been from February to May, and we'll see if that continues on, but it feels fitting that the five finalists are from these three teams.
If you look at our comment section from last week, and everyone did such a great job competing in our May Madness bracket challenge, a lot of people went chalk, Charlotte.
Yes,
a lot of people went North Carolina, Boston College, Northwestern, and Florida.
Yes.
So as we look at the quarterfinals, which is just 2 days away, I can't believe it, which of those four is the most vulnerable? I don't want to pick any of these games. I really don't. We can give opinions, but I don't want to make a pick.
Yes.
But which is the most vulnerable? You're not saying they're going to lose, but who is the most vulnerable? Or do you think, no doubt, no one's vulnerable? It really is going to be chalk 1, 2, 3, 4.
I think the closest matchup will be the one in Gainesville. I think Florida Duke, and you mentioned it, I think that's going to be a matchup that will be exciting for fans to watch. I think they both play an aggressive style. They have talent top to bottom, but I think, it is in Gainesville, and that's a benefit. You have a Duke team that went on the road to Charlottesville, which is not too far, but now you're going back on the road in a shorter week to Gainesville. But this is a Duke team that's playing the best that they've played all season. So I think this is going to be the closest game. Now, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I think this is going to be the closest matchup. I also think that the Penn Quakers are going into Evanston remembering what happened a year ago. We had this matchup in the quarterfinal last year. We had a Penn Northwestern matchup, and I don't think the Quakers felt like they gave their best effort. Northwestern dominated.
It was not particularly close.
It was not. And they remember that. So I also think that this matchup may be closer than people think.
So I know we said we weren't going to make picks, but I do think UNC and Northwestern win handily.
Okay. Handily. So you disagree? You disagree with me?
I do disagree with you respectfully. Respectfully.
Okay.
I think the closest of the 4 matchups will be in Chestnut Hill. And I'm going to take a lot of heat because I know we got a lot of Eagles fans in the chat that are dedicated viewers of the Lacrosse Rundown. Something about that Stony Brook game for BC didn't sit with me well. Usually when BC gets up 6-0 in a game, foot on gas, they win by a comfortable margin, double-digit win. They let Stony Brook claw their way back into that game, and they only won 10-7. And to see that offense only put up 10 goals, I know Stony Brook runs a very unique defense, but
very unique.
10 goals is 10 goals. I think this senior class for Yale, we've touched on it throughout the year, Ivy League champions, special group for Erica Bamford's team. I think they go up there and play with a ton of pride. Not that pride's ever won a game, right? You need talent. You need to put the ball in the back of the net. But I don't know that Boston College will be able to separate in that game. And Yale has played a lot more close games this season than Boston College has. They're a lot more comfortable in those close, grinded out situations. So I'll be very curious. Obviously, BC's the favorite to win that game. But I think of the 4, they could be most vulnerable because of how special that senior class and what a great story that has been this season for Yale.
It's going to be interesting. And I think, the Stony Brook team that showed up in the first round and beat a Loyola team that has had the firepower, Georgia Latch, Chase Boyle, they have the draw unit, they have the defense to beat that team in the first round was remarkable. And I think it's a credit to how hard they were playing their defense, their high pressure zone defense. It's very hard to read. It was evident and on display all weekend long. And you're right. It was a close battle between the Seawolves and the Eagles. I think, the style of defense that Yale plays, the zone defense, a little different. But I think, you're seeing a few similarities from the two. But I think to go on the other side of the bracket, Jay, I'm looking at a Princeton team. You mentioned Yale playing the best that they have all year, a Princeton team that feels like they're playing with a lot of fire going into Chapel Hill to play the top-ranked Tar Heels. I'm looking at that matchup too. I mean, I know it's the top-seeded team versus the unranked team by definition of the seeding, but it feels like those two teams are a little bit closer than people may think.
Yeah, I mean, they go in with house money, right? Everyone's going to expect number 1 North Carolina to take care of business, but you go in with nothing to lose. The way they're putting the balls in the back of the net right now, Princeton, so much offensive firepower, like you said, Charlotte. We'll see. It's going to be epic. Thursday, you just park yourself in front of the TV all day. It starts at noon. It finishes at probably close to 10 o'clock at night, 10 straight hours of lacrosse. You do not want to miss it. All the games on ESPNU. And the Lacrosse Rundown will have the call of Boston College and Yale. We will be there 5 o'clock. You do not want to miss it as Boston College tries to make it to an incredible 8th straight championship weekend.
Boots on the ground. The Lacrosse Rundown will be live in Chestnut Hill on the broadcast. But if you guys remember our ACC quarterfinal day a couple weeks ago where we had 4 games on TV all the way from 11 a.m. through the night, we had you covered. It's that, but even better. The stakes are higher. A ticket to the Final Four, a ticket to Gillette Stadium, Foxborough, Massachusetts is on the line for these 8 teams. And you've got 4 games on TV from 12 all the way through. And you've got epic broadcasts to cover it. So you guys, this is a lacrosse fan's dream. This Thursday, this quarterfinal day could not be any better with these storylines and the matchups that we have.
If you haven't watched it, Charlotte just referenced the crazy ACC quarterfinal day. We did a behind the scenes for Charlotte's YouTube. So it's another video on this channel, a behind the scenes look at what it's like to call 4 games in one day with Charlotte and I and the Hall of Famer, Sheehan Stanwyck Birch. We will be reunited at Foxborough to crown a champion.
Soon.
We can't wait, and we'll take you all the way there right here on the Lacrosse Rundown.
Can't wait. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. It is always the best time of the week getting to hear your guys' thoughts, break it down with you guys. The field is slimming, and we're almost there. We're almost to our Final Four on the men's and the women's side. Next week, we will have those teams set for you guys, and we cannot wait to talk about it. But remember, when this video ends, go to the live tab of my YouTube channel. drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and a question that you guys have for next week's show to be featured. We appreciate you guys. We love having this community. The Lacrosse Rundown is where everyone gets their favorite lacrosse news every week. We appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.